on, Civil Law in the house. How are you?
Sup?
How you doing?
Yeah, I knew we were in trouble from the prosecution's open, and the last several weeks has not gotten any better in any respect. It's been pretty much an unmitigated disaster. And for me, I try to just keep this simple. It's like within the confines of the state versus Reed, the state has the burden of proof. So sometimes when people ask me, like, what do you think happened? I'm like, that is not my problem. That is not my problem. My problem is, does the state have did the state make its burn? If not, I'm done. What happened? I don't know. Nor within the confines of this case do I, strictly speaking, care, because that is not my problem. All I need to know is whether the state's proved its burden, and then I'm done.
You know, Kurt, and by the way, welcome to LTL Media, and we're on Let's Talk Live here, and I appreciate you doing kind of the spontaneous to jump up. You and I have never met. I've come across your channel quite a few times, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you. It's awesome to have you jump on, but you know, it's
yeah. Maybe it's like maybe Karen Reed did it. I don't know, but if the state can't prove its case, I just don't care. It's not my problem.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, that come at me and attack me and say, "Oh, well, the defense has to prove it." That they don't have to prove anything.
No,
it's the burden of proof is not on the defense. Yeah. They're there to defend their client and show that their client didn't do it. It's not their burden to prove it.
Yeah. Make the state prove it is always a viable defense theory. It's always what you have left at the end of the day. You prove it.
So
the defense can do nothing. They don't have to open their mouth and they can win. That's the virtue of being the defense. They literally can remain mute the entire time and win.
Yeah, they pretty much probably could have did it during this.
Yeah. But as it turns out, we've had more exciting things other than that, because things are very sort of suspect between, all the dispatch logs are somehow magically wrong. The times are somehow wrong off by a factor of 60. The sworn affidavit that goes along with the search warrant is off by 90 minutes. I seem to remember there's a term for it when you lie under oath in response to a search warrant application. I think it starts with a P. You're not supposed to do that. Yeah. We've got like the police officer who, like, initially says in their report, doesn't make these statements about she did it, or other confessing statements. You would think that if the police officer is going to write anything down, it would probably be the confession, but no, somehow that just magically escaped my attention. It magically escaped my attention in the report and during my initial talking with Proctor. But fast forward to the grand jury, and even more so today, and suddenly I'm remembering all sorts of exciting confessional things. Same problem with this witness. When they went over the grand jury, the grand jury, did she say, I did? No. We said 12 other things, but not that thing. Did it slip your mind? It's amazing. In Massachusetts, apparently your memory gets better over time. It's magical.
How about this? You have witnesses at a murder scene where a Boston police officer has been killed, murdered, or dead or dying, and they allow witnesses to walk away and go inside the house.
Yeah.
Inside the house to wake people up and have them come outside. And magically, when they come downstairs, the police officer is just waiting there right inside the house, just for everybody to come downstairs.
Yeah. It does. And we have 20-year veterans who apparently don't know crime scene procedures and have never experienced snow. I didn't realize that snow was that rare in Massachusetts. I didn't realize it was like a once in a generation event. No concept of snow. So how are we supposed to know any better? So we got out the leaf blower. It has the word leaf in it.
Well, because that's the excellent.
We're not blowing leaves, sir. It's probably the wrong tool.
But that's the that's going to say that's the tools of the trade when you're collecting evidence. Oh, and red Solo cups and
the unlabeled Solo cups, unmarked, uncapped, unsanitized, in the used paper bag. And as I sort of made the joke on my channel, it's like I imagine that in the depths of the Solo company, their marketing team has over time tried to figure out every possible use for the Solo cups in order to sell more Solo cups, but they missed one.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet their marketing team never thought of marketing the Solo cups as a blood collection device for evidence. So there's a whole new marketing campaign out there for you guys. Who knew?
The sad thing about it is this, though, because the evidence was so poorly collected, probably by design, you know, if this ever turns around and perjury comes out and these people get prosecuted, which is probably not going to happen. I don't know.
Perjury is incredibly hard to prove. Just generally speaking, it's incredibly hard to prove.
You want to watch some testimony?
Sure, I can watch the stupid some more.
Oh, and by the way, I made an opinion today. Someone said, "Why didn't they cross Kerry Roberts today?" And I said, my estimate, what I'm probably thinking is, Kerry Roberts kind of is not. She's an outsider. It's kind of what I looked at her as, an outsider. And what Karen's team is trying to do is keep the McAlberts together, the Albert and McCabe faction together in this. So Kerry Roberts kind of was an outsider. And everybody's like, oh, why didn't they crossed her? Because she didn't have that full relationship with Jen, but she had more of a relationship with John, and we heard that today. And it kind of doesn't really implicate her in the circle of trust, is what I kind of call it here on my channel. But that's
they didn't cross-examine other people like earlier on, like a couple weeks ago at the start of the case. There's some people that they didn't cross-examination, but it shows good discipline, and I for the most part think that the defense has showed good discipline throughout, because you don't necessarily need to cross every witness, and you also need to remember why you're crossing them and why not. And not every cross needs to be long. A cross can be a question. If that's all you have, that's all you have. Or if you don't have any questions, that's okay too. But the defense has their theory of the case. They outlined their theory of the case exceptionally well in their opening. I was particularly impressed with that first 5 sentences of their opening, where they went, Karen Read was framed. And then the next 3 to 4 sentences before they said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I'm like, that's basically optimal. That's what you want every opening to be. Is that that first paragraph? It was basically perfect. And then they laid out the case in a very coherent, easy to understand way. And they're only asking questions to fill in the space of the framework of their theory, because everything else is noise.
Right. Yeah, I was just Jennifer D8 with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Do you think the feds are in the courtroom watching? Well, obviously we know there was a parallel investigation. Federal authorities have been investigating this case, and I believe that it is still ongoing.
I thought it was the Fed. I thought there was a Fed in the courtroom during opening argument who was taking notes in the background. I thought that was a Fed.
Ooh.
During opening arguments, I thought that was a Fed.
Wow. Interesting. I didn't hear that. Could be. Maybe. We don't know. All right, let's watch some more Stupid. We're almost at the end of Stupid.
Correct.
Objection.
Sustained. Can I ask it differently?
Or anytime you want me to pause, just say pause, because I'd love to hear your insight.
Jackson.
Of those 3 searches, there was only one marked deleted. Isn't that right?
Correct.
That was the one at 2:27 a.m., correct?
I wouldn't even know how to go in and delete a search.
That's not what I asked you. The one according to the Celebrite report that was deleted, the one at 2:27 a.m., correct?
Correct.
You'd agree that that's awfully convenient for you, isn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, when they get the Celebrite expert, which I'm sure the defense is probably going to call, they're going to nail this down, right?
I mean, Celebrite is one of the most, if not the most common tool used for exactly this purpose. The government relies on Celebrite all the time. So it's very odd that suddenly the prosecution's offering witnesses yeah, that Celebrite data isn't that good.
Yeah, it's just not
okay. You want to offer someone who says DNA isn't that reliable while you're at it? That'd be fun.
Right. Unreal. She's gonna roll with it.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lally?
Thank you.
No, this is before.
Yes. Thank you.
That guy hates his life every time he goes home.
This woman is a dementor because she sucks all the joy out of my life.
What's that?
I said this woman is a dementor from Harry Potter because the dementors, what they do is they suck all the joy out of you. That's how they're described in the book. What they do is they suck all the joy away. And I look at her and I'm like, yep. Anyone know what Patronus charm is suitable for her? Because damn.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Oh boy.
Going back a little bit, you were asked some questions about Life 360 application that you had on your phone. Is that right?
Yes.
And you're familiar with that app and familiar with sort of using that app to see where your children are at various times. Is that correct?
Yes.
And from your experience using that app, how accurate is it as far as location, time, or anything in regard to it?
Pretty accurate, varying some of their locations and sometimes weather.
Have you ever had instances in which you were told someone was somewhere and they were not there?
Yes.
And you were asked some questions about Ryan Nagel's truck, correct?
Yes.
And do you know, or did you on January 29th, 2022, did you know Ryan Nagel?
I did not.
Did you know what kind of vehicle he drove?
I did not.
Keep your voice up, Mr. Lally, please.
Do you know whether or not that was actually somebody else's truck?
I do not know.
Know whether or not on January 29th, 2022, Ryan Nagel had a friend named Ricky?
I do now.
But on the 29th, did you?
No.
On the 29th, did you have any idea what kind of vehicle he drove?
No.
This person you didn't know.
Correct.
Now, when you looked outside as far as the
I agree. Thank you.
truck was concerned, did you even see a truck?
I just saw lights, vehicle. I didn't focus much attention to what was over there.
Yeah.
So fair to say you weren't paying attention.
Another thing that she never pays attention to.
Yeah. I did think that was a bit unfair. I didn't make a video about it because I didn't really know how to do it, but I did think it was a bit unfair when the defense was like crossing. Well, because they were implying because you could see the car, you could see anything else that was in between you and your field of view. And that's just not the way human psychology works. It's like when you're focusing on something, you can very easily miss anything else. And there's like that. There's the famous example of like count the number of times the people pass the basketball, and you ask them about the gorilla, and they're like, "What gorilla?" Because they didn't see it, even though it was walking right in the middle of the frame. So I did think that was an unfair question. It's like because I could see the car, I necessarily could see anything else within my field of view, and I'm like, that's just not the way human perception works.
Interesting take, because I would think that. I don't know. I kind of like this whole like if I had an alligator in front of me, you would have saw an alligator, right?
See, this is my point. I don't know that you would. That's exactly the problem. I'm not,
Weird,
if you're focused on the right thing, I'm not sure you necessarily would see the alligator.
Okay.
That's the way human perceptions works. It's funny that way.
Oh, Wit 499 says like TV, the lie detector is right till God. All right, let's keep playing. Thank you for the
To a truck you didn't see, a person you didn't know that you had never seen before, correct?
Sustained as to that form.
Now, you were asked some questions about text between Ryan Nagel and Julie Nagel, correct?
Yes.
And as far as when those texts were sent, you don't know, do you?
Can you clarify?
Do you know whether or not Ryan Nagel texted his sister Julie before he had even pulled onto Fairview Road?
They were texting at about his arrival.
Texting about his arrival, but do you know where Ryan Nagel was when he was texting Julie about his arrival?
I believe he was outside.
But you don't know. Is that fair to say?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know whether or not Ryan Nagel was on Cedar Crest or somewhere else when he texted Julie that he was about to arrive or that he was there?
Objection.
Well, I'll allow it. Do you know that?
I don't know that now.
As far as the defendant's motor vehicle and the truck that Mr. Nagel was in, did you see either of those vehicles arrive in front of Fairview?
Yes.
You saw them pull up?
No, actually, are you asking if I saw them pulling up or if I saw when they arrived? I did not see them pulling up.
So at some point after they arrived, your attention was drawn outside.
Yes.
And when we're talking about you going to the door and looking outside, how long a period are you looking at?
Not long.
So would you describe it as either a glance or more of a, were you staring intently at the vehicle out in front of the house?
Objection.
Sustained.
How would you describe the manner in which you were looking out at the SUV in front of the house?
I would go to the front door. I look out. I saw the vehicle. I believe I sent a text and I went and sat back down.
In any of those times that you went to the door, and do you know how many times you went to the door?
I don't know exactly.
At least twice, is that correct?
At least, yes.
Now, in those at least twice that you, well, at least twice that you saw the vehicle and once that you saw that the vehicle was gone, correct?
Yeah, so I guess actually it was more than twice because I saw the vehicle move as well.
And when you say as far as you saw the vehicle move, did you see the vehicle physically move, or it was in one place and then you came back later and it was in a different?
It was in one place, and then when I came back, it was further up.
Now, at any of those points in time, did you took a glance out the storm door? Did you see anybody outside of the vehicle?
No,
Did you see inside of the vehicle?
no,
Did you see anybody outside other than Julie Nagel on the front lawn, front walkway, or anything else?
no.
At any point in time while you were out,
Question for you, Kurt. Calm down, Tinkerbell. That's a fun name. It says, Kurt, thoughts on Lally's progression in the last weeks, better, worse, or the same?
His direct style has been more or less consistent. I'm not as sharply critical of that aspect of it as, for example, his opening, which was a trash fire disaster area. His direct has been serviceable. The problem is just that he doesn't have the goods to work from. And so it's like, yeah, it's a perfectly serviceable direct technically. You know, I could critique it and have problems with it, but the problem is that his witnesses suck, and so it's like, what can you do?
I mean, it's been a dumpster fire. It just keeps getting, worse and worse and worse for him. This was the worst witness so far.
Of course, the problem for him is, like, because he's the government, he doesn't have to bring this case at all. He doesn't have to call any of these people. So it's a error of his own choosing. You know, sometimes defense lawyers will be put in this uncomfortable position because sometimes, the person you have to call isn't necessarily the most reputable person. You have to deal with what you got. But if you're the government, it's like you can just choose not to bring the case. That is not an option the defense has. So it's like, it's hard to have too much sympathy. This is on you, man.
When you have a witness like this that it's clearly been dragging Lally's case down, like, what does he do to go home and adjust for that? Is he just like get in the car and he's like, and then just goes home and tries to re-strategize, or does he just keep going on with what he's got?
Well, I mean, all that should have been thought out in the theory of the case, and I'm not sure that it was very well delineated. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what he was going to talk about from the opening. It was just a random collection of data with no particular organizational structure that provided me no context to understand why the evidence was important or not. I loved how he yada-yada'd right over the motive, as I made a note when I was talking about it with Natalie, is like talking about this trip to the overseas where they were having disputes and the idea of the affair, and he just kind of talked about it in the exact same monotone that he talks about everything else. So it's really hard to understand that there's anything significant because he doesn't modulate his voice a lot like I'm doing right now. So everything just becomes a noise and you don't really understand what's being said. See how that's annoying after a while? So yeah, it's like maybe you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, you kind of lull the jury to sleep, I would think.
Yeah, that's not the ideal.
I'm gonna double time him up a little bit here because he is.
Oh, good. Slow. Maybe I'll bring some energy to it.
Yeah.
At 34 Fairview that night, did you see John O'Keefe?
No.
At any point in time when you texted John O'Keefe after you arrived at Fairview, did John O'Keefe respond?
No.
At any point in time after you arrived at Fairview, after you hung up from the 12:18 a.m. call in which you were describing where 34 Fairview was in reference to Bella's house, did you ever hear from John O'Keefe ever again?
No.
And during that about 20-minute or so period of time when Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant's SUV is in front of the house, you never heard anything from John O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
And did that strike you as unusual as far as him not responding?
I thought it was strange, but then I thought that they just might have decided to go home or had gotten into a fight or Kaylee wanted him home.
Now, you're looking out through the storm door and you see the Lexus with its lights, right?
Correct.
And from that area, the secondary area, up by the flagpole and the fire hydrant, that's the same area where you found John O'Keefe the next morning, correct?
Correct.
And with reference to that area, is there any lights as far as street lights or anything that you're aware of in that area?
No, it's a dark area in the corner of the lot.
Now, at any point in time, were you looking or were you expecting to see?
I'd rather have
John
Lolly
Bonnie
than
on
this woman. I'll tell
Absolutely
you what.
not.
If my choices are if my choices are a conversation with Lolly or a conversation with this woman, I'll take Lolly every day and twice on Sunday. Damn. This woman's going to eat my soul. I'll take my chances with Lolly.
Well, look at the face.
And fair to say, when you're looking in the dark, in the snow, from the storm door out towards the vehicle, not the same conditions as.
Well, Kurt, she was in shock and horror. The shock and horror. All the harassment.
Look at that face says, I am going to eat you.
Well, it's the shock and horror. It was shock and horror.
As if you're standing in a courtroom, sitting in a courtroom today, about 10 feet away from somebody during the daytime with lights on, correct?
Correct.
Shock for months.
In fact, when you go back to Fairview,
Horror.
You know, being single isn't so bad
who was the
after
person
all.
who requested or directed to go to Fairview?
Karen.
And so when you go to Fairview along with the defendant and Ms. Roberts at the defendant's direction, sometime around 6 a.m., when was it that you first saw Ms. O'Keefe?
I wasn't the one to first see him. Karen was.
So she's banging on the door, asking it to be let out. She goes directly over to the bar, correct?
Correct.
And neither you nor Ms. Roberts, well, you didn't see Mr. O'Keefe on the lawn until after she did that, correct?
Correct.
And that was after you had already sort of driven a little bit past where he was, correct?
Correct.
Now, with reference to you get home from Fairview around 2 a.m. or somewhere in that time frame, you go up to bed and you do some searches on your phone, correct?
Correct.
And so there's a Safari tab or an application on your phone. That's where you access Google.
Yes.
Is that typically where you would access Google?
Yes.
And you were looking at Ozone basketball. You're also looking at Hockomock. Is that right? Objection.
Sustained.
What, if anything else, were you looking at beyond the Ozone basketball you talked about?
We had an exciting game earlier in the night against a local town that has a very good basketball program. So I went on Hockomock Sports to look at the recap, and typically I'll do that to see how other teams did, etc.
And around that same time, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, within when you did that, as far as looking things up on Google, were you opening up new tabs within Safari as you were looking at different websites or different topics?
No.
And when you went to bed or you went to sleep that evening, at some point you turned off your phone, right?
Correct.
And did you X out that box, that Safari tab that you were doing those searches with regard to Ozone and Hockomock?
No, I used to always leave my tabs open and my kids would yell at me.
As far as having multiple tabs open, is that correct?
Drains my battery, etc. Yes.
So then flash forward to sometime after 6 a.m., you're on the side of the road and the defendant asks you to conduct or look up something with regard to hypothermia or how long to die in the pool, correct?
Correct.
So when you open that up and you go into Google, did you open up a new tab or did you just sort of go into what you had already open in the Safari tab?
I went to what I already had opened.
And that's where you perform the search, is that right?
Excuse me?
That's where you perform the search that you were just being asked about?
Yes.
And you never made any search like that at 2:27 in the morning, correct?
I did not know.
Now, again, you've been shown what's been called a Cellbrite extraction report, correct?
Yes.
Are you familiar with how many Cellbrite extraction reports were conducted in reference to your phone?
I think a couple. I'm actually not sure.
And prior to January 29, 2022, had you ever seen a Cellbrite extraction report?
No.
As you sit here today, do you even really know what that is?
Not really. No.
You know what a wall file is?
No.
You know what an SQLite database is?
No.
You know what a knowledge profile C database is?
No.
You know how information.
But I'm sure your husband does. Right, Kurt? He's an IT guy. I'm sure he knows.
Is stored and kept within your cell phone.
No.
Now, as far as, let me ask you this: you had 4 children, and you were a mom, a homemaker, correct?
Correct.
At some point, you did work, though, right?
Yes.
What did you do for work?
I was an elementary school teacher.
What grade did you teach?
5th.
Really? Holy shit.
One question and we'll see where this goes.
Guys, didn't ask her about the weather.
Well, someone gave her kid. Someone gave her kids to teach. That's not right, man.
All right.
What grade did you teach?
5th.
And how long did you teach 5th grade?
Objection.
Yeah. I'm going to see counsel at sidebar. Folks, feel free to stand up.
That you saw the vehicle out front of the house, correct?
Correct.
And so then what is the defendant's story changed at that point?
That they went there, and it changed multiple times. I'm not sure exactly. She said, "Oh, at one point, oh my God, I don't even remember going there." She was telling other people that he was dead, that a plow hit him. The story changed multiple times that morning.
Now, on cross-examination, you were played a voicemail. Do you know whose phone that voicemail was from?
They never said no.
Fair to say that you're on 911 in the background of that phone call, correct?
Correct.
So it wasn't your phone.
Correct.
And there's two other people beyond that, as far as Ms. Roberts and the defendant there, correct?
Correct.
Was Terry on the phone at all that you saw?
No.
And so with reference to the timing of that phone, you had called 911 and you were on the phone with 911 at the time that recording starts, right?
Correct.
So you had gotten out of the car. You had gone around and then seen where the defendant had run over to Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Objection.
As to the form, it's sustained.
What had you done before you placed that 911 call?
I got out of the car. I ran behind the car over to the body. I was in a state of shock for a couple of seconds. Carrie and I looked at each other and I said, "I'm going to call 911.
And there was a period of time when you made the call, you were connected, and you said you bounced around to different agencies, correct?
Yes.
And this is after the defendant has hit the door and run from the vehicle over to Mr. O'Keefe's phone, right?
Yes.
So it's not your phone, and it's not Ms. Roberts' phone. Fair inference is the defendant's phone, correct?
Correct.
And so this phone call had been made or started recording at some point before you had even gotten out of the car, made your way over to Mr. O'Keefe, been in a state of shock for a few seconds, called 911, connected to 911. So at some point, it had to have been made in the car, correct?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
Do you know when that voicemail or that recording that you heard, do you know when that call was placed?
I don't.
Good point, Queen. And I said this too. You know, you make a 911 call. This is your friend. You know, and I just said this before Kirk got on. This is your friend that you love. You care. You love John. Why would you not say on the phone, "My friend is down. He's hurt. He needs 911. A Boston police officer, John O'Keefe, is down. Officer down." Why would you not say that? She didn't say it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good question.
You know,
It sounds like you're trying to literally dehumanize him, and maybe that's because of a guilty mind.
Yeah. I mean, why would you not say that? This is a friend that you loved and you want emergency there as quick as possible. Why would you not say officer down? They would have been there like that.
Now, at the time that you are making the 911 call, where is the defendant in relation to the vehicle?
She is over with Mr. O'Keefe.
You mentioned that the part beyond the 911 call where you heard yourself talking, you're at the rear of Ms. Roberts' vehicle?
Yes.
And why are you at the rear of Ms. Roberts' vehicle?
In the beginning, I'm at the rear gathering towels or blankets. And then a few times I go to the rear because I'm trying to speak with the 911 and Karen is screaming hysterically. And then Carrie starts screaming at her to calm down. It was quite chaotic. So I was moving away so that I could be clear with the operators.
Now, at some point you went into your sister's house at 3450, right?
Yes.
And why did you go?
Officer Lank asked me to go in and wake them up.
So you were asked to go in there by the police.
So officers let people go into houses and not say, "Hey, can you kind of stay here? We're going to get some statements and ask you some questions." You go right up in their house. Okay, that makes
Wake them
sense.
up, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
And at some point you indicated that you had called Officer Lang to come back to the house, right?
Yes.
And how did you get his number again?
Julie Albert.
And as far as, were you aware whether or not Brian Albert, Cole Albert, or any of the other people that were present had Officer Lang's number?
Objection.
Sustained.
Why did you ask Julie Albert and not Brian Albert and Nicole Albert?
Because I knew she was the only one that had his number.
You were asked some questions about when you're on scene, and you indicated in your testimony on direct that you heard the defendant say, I hit him, correct?
Yes.
You also, early in your testimony, had indicated that earlier in the morning, the defendant had phrased that differently as far as, could I have hit him or did I, correct?
Objection.
Sustained as to the form.
You heard the defendant make a variety of statements over the course of the night, correct?
Yes.
And more to my point, as far as you recall testifying at another hearing under oath in June of 2020, correct?
Yes.
And were you recall being asked some questions specifically about this topic?
Objection.
Allowed. Okay.
Sidebar.
Being asked any questions sort of at different times, the defendant saying different iterations of that same statement.
Objection.
Sustained as to form. No leading, Mr. Lally.
With respect to that that's testimony of that same prior proceeding, what, if anything else, were you asked about statements the defendant made to you that morning?
I was asked what were some of the statements that Miss Reed had made, and it was like, repeat, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? I have a cracked taillight. And then
But never,
I hit him. I hit him.
But you didn't say that part.
Yeah. You know
That's
what's
the
another
problem.
good one too? Is that how she said, oh, when we got to John's house, Karen got out of the car and that's when she pointed her taillight and we had a conversation about it. And then we went into the house. Lally plays the video and that literally never happened. And the funny thing is he let it run for it felt like forever. It felt like it was like 5 minutes. It probably was an extra 30 seconds. And I'm kind of sitting there going, when are they going to come back outside this house and point this taillight and have the conversation? It never happened.
It also just strikes me as slightly odd, maybe, because the way that she's sort of describing it on the stand, like right now, the I hit him, she describes that as she portrays it as a confession at face value. But when you listen to everything else she said about the other statements, she and other witnesses describe Karen Reed as hysterical, as completely emotional, as basically apoplectic, irrational. And so it's like, I just don't quite understand, even within the context of the narratives that she's trying to spin, why she would find those particular statements in the way they were said to be shocking or to be particularly notable. Because she said that earlier. I found the statement shocking. I'm like, but shocking, why would you find them shocking? When this woman is saying basically everything else and going a mile a minute, why would you assume that she's even aware or conscious of what she's saying in such a way that you viewed it as a confession and are so angry about it? It seems like a slightly odd portrayal given everything else that's going on. So I don't quite get it.
Well, she's an odd duck. She's believing her own lies. I mean,
everything else she said was hysterical and ranting and emotional and unhinged. But when she said, I hit him, it was the confession of a stone cold killer. What the hell is this? Doesn't quite flow, man.
It's so shocking.
And so with respect to questions and as far as did I hit him or could I have hit him, and the statement I hit him, those were at different times, correct?
Correct.
Now, you met with Trooper Proctor on January 29th, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that the first time that you had met him?
Correct.
If anyone was with him when you met?
I believe
just who was with him will be fine.
And
so what, if anything, has to go?
With other troopers?
Yes.
And by other troopers, I mean not Trooper Proctor and not Trooper Europe.
Yes.
And with respect to meeting with other troopers, was it at that point that they talked to you about taking your phone?
Correct.
And I got a question for you, Kurt. And I've never really heard this out of a lot of the trials that I've ever watched. Judge Bev actually corrects Lally today. It says you're leading. I've never really heard that's a real big no-no, right?
Yeah, well, on redirect, which is what he's doing, a lot of judges will let you get away with leading. And she's absolutely correct. You're not allowed to lead on redirect any more than you're allowed to be on direct. So she's being strict, and I'm here for it.
Well, it's nice that she's actually, started to kind of.
It is the rule. I mean, you know, it is the rule. You're not allowed to lead on redirect either. Attorneys
I've
do it
never
all the
really
time, and
heard-
yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I've
Most
never
judges
heard
won't
that.
most judges won't correct you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I never heard that before.
They asked you for your phone, is that correct?
I had shared my Life 360 and my Life 360 and my texts, and they asked if they could take a copy of my phone.
And did you agree?
Pro tip: say
I agreed
no.
to it, yes.
And were you presented
tip,
a
say
phone
no.
call in regard to your agreeing to
What's that?
I say pro tip: say no. If the police ever say, "Do you mind if we search your car? Do you mind if we look
No.
around? Can we get your cell phone?
Right.
Can we take a
No.
copy?" Just say no.
Right.
Just say no.
Need
No
a
is no
lawyer.
is always the right answer to every question. Just say no.
I need a lawyer.
to hand over your phone?
Yes.
And beyond what you had testified to earlier, as far as things, were there any limitations that you put on what they could look at or take from your phone?
No limitations.
And Pro Tron?
Yes.
I would say no. I'm just telling you.
Let's speed up.
I'm showing you a document and just ask you to look at it. With them.
She needs those documents to refresh all the time. Can you show it to me?
Just in general, ma'am, do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that?
This was the consent form for my phone.
So that's the form you filled out with the troopers in regards to giving over your phone.
Correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm on the seat to.
Is there an objection, Mr. Jackson?
No objection.
Okay, thank you.
You already got the information.
100.
Thank you.
Now, again, Ms. McCabe, initially following that the event of initially that morning around 6 a.m. or so, at some point you were seeking or you had actually asked the defendant for Terry Roberts' phone number, correct?
Yes.
And why is it that you were looking for Terry's number specifically?
Well, the driving conditions were terrible. She was driving to Braintree to pick up Mr. and Mrs. O'Keefe. And then they were heading to the hospital. And I was just looking to see how John was doing.
You had mentioned at some point, did you speak to Ms. Roberts that morning in regard to updates as far as how John was doing?
Yes.
And you mentioned that later on, that day or the next day, that you had gone over to Mr. O'Keefe's house with Ms. Roberts, correct?
Yes.
And who was driving at the time that you went over to the O'Keefe's house with Ms. Roberts?
Carrie was driving.
And so when you left the O'Keefe's house, where was it that you went?
Carrie went to drop her daughter off at her friend's house, the daughter of Mike Lank.
And you were just in the front passenger seat of that vehicle, right?
Yes.
You had mentioned as far as getting together with Ms. Roberts at the request of someone to talk about a timeline, right?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of how that came about or who was making that request?
Carrie called me and she told me that she had talked to Peggy, and Peggy had
No, I'm going to allow it.
and Peggy had suggested to Carrie, you guys should write a timeline. You don't want to forget anything, when the time
That's
comes.
got to be like
meaning
3
if-
levels of
when the
hearsay right there. I'm just trying to count them in my head. It's like she
Timeline,
said
write
to
that
me that
whole
said
down.
that's got to be like 3 levels of hearsay.
And I'm sorry, writing the whole timeline down. Why are you writing a timeline down? Oh, to keep our story straight. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
trial comes, you don't want to forget anything that happened.
Right. When trial
And just to be clear,
Oh.
when you say Peggy, who are you referring
Mrs. O'Keefe,
to? John's mother?
John's mother, correct?
Now, you were asked some questions about subsequent date as far as hearing bits and pieces or portions of Ms. Roberts' statement to troopers at your home, correct?
Correct.
You know whether or not that was the first time that Ms. Roberts had talked to troopers or officers or anyone from either Canton Police or State Police?
I believe on the 29th in the afternoon, troopers went to her house. I said that would have been the first time.
So the time that she was at your home and speaking to troopers, that would have been at least the second time that she spoke to troopers, correct?
Objection.
Sustain.
Now, with reference to Ms. Roberts and her phone, was Ms. Roberts, the time that you handed your phone over to the troopers, was Ms. Roberts present there as well?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you see Ms. Roberts do with respect to her phone and the troopers?
She turned her phone over as well and signed the consent.
Now, during that time, you had indicated that you had heard a statement that you said was horrified you in some way. Is that correct?
From Miss Roberts?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. What was that? What was she talking about?
Objection.
The door has been opened, Mr. Jackson. That means you can answer. Okay.
So basically, Carrie is a talker, and once she started,
I think just focus on
Okay.
what she said.
okay, she said something like, John really loved Amy, and in my eyes, Karen was just a babysitter with benefits.
And is that what made it memorable to you as far as what had transpired at that time?
Yes,
At any point in time, did you ever coordinate your statement and Ms. Roberts' statements with her prior to testifying at any hearing or any proceeding at any point in time?
no,
Let me ask you, when you came to the area of 34 Fairview Road around 6 a.m. And you saw Mr. O'Keefe, was he in the same clothes that you had seen him in earlier?
he had jeans and I believe the same shirt on. Yes,
And nothing additional as far as a jacket or anything like that you saw?
not that I recall.
Now, again, as you were driving down Fairview Road, if the defendant did not bang on the door and essentially jump out of the car and make a beeline over to Mr. O'Keefe, would you have stopped the car?
No,
Recall when you were leaving 34 Fairview Road earlier, as far as sometime between 1:30 and 1:45 when Mr. McCabe is driving. Do you recall whether or not the roads were plowed or treated or anything that you saw at that time?
I know there was snow on them, but I can't recall specifics.
Now, as far as the defendant coming over your house shortly after 5 a.m., was that something that you were expecting at the time?
No,
And what was it prior to the defendant showing up and sort of screaming in front of your house? What was your sort of plan as far as based on the information that Ms. Reed had at home?
my husband and I were going to go out and we were going to drive over to Tom Beatty's house to see if John was there.
Now, as far as the 911 call that you were making, that information that you were providing, what was that based on?
What I was seeing.
But as far as how Mr. O'Keefe had come to be there at 34 Fairview Road, when you're communicating any of that with the 911 operator or two officers on scene, was that from your observations when you were inside 34 Fairview after the waterfall or from some other source?
Well, it was from what Karen was saying as we were driving there.
So as far as him being dropped off or anything like that, that came from the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Get back to
Now, as
Jackson.
far as you had been asked and you had testified about going over to a Proctor's house to meet with his wife, correct?
Correct.
And you testified about certain incidents of harassment that you had undergone, as well as Mrs. Proctor, is that correct?
Correct.
How long had that been going on for at that point?
At that point, it started in April, and now I believe I went over there in September.
And what, if anything, was the frequency of the harassment? Was it sporadic, or how often were you experiencing that?
Daily, sometimes hourly.
Mhm.
And in addition to what you've already testified, what, if any, other incidents do you recall specifically involving either you or your children or your home?
People come by my house, they take video, they scream. They've gone to my child's sporting events and called me names. They've written letters to my daughter's colleges and said that they shouldn't allow them to play. And then they've attached these horrific articles that have been complete lies about all of us. They send me Facebook messages. They call my phone, home phone and cell phone, all hours of the night. They tell me to kill myself. They tell me I'm a terrible mother. They harass my children. My daughter testified here the other day. We didn't even get out of the building and people were, saying horrendous things, that she's a liar. Your mother should die. It's just, it's unimaginable what my entire family is going through. I go to the beach, they take pictures, they post it, they threaten that there are eyes everywhere. I'll never be able to live a normal life again. I am a witness. That's all I am. I am not on trial. I am a witness. And these
You should be
people
on
are
trial.
terrorizing me.
You should be on trial.
that part.
Destruction
I'll
of
strike
evidence.
that part.
How about for
Everything
that,
else
for
is
starters?
Okay.
Destruction of evidence, perjury,
So,
and some other
Go
things I
on.
could dream up. Possibly accessory, depending on my mood that day.
Mm-hmm. It's just the shock and horror. The horror.
your understanding that Mrs. Proctor had sustained.
That's okay.
similar
Just keep looking
issues
with
as you
those
had.
cold, dead eyes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, again, Trooper Michael Proctor, never met him prior to January 29, 2022, correct?
I have never met him prior. No.
And the time that you went over to meet with Elizabeth Proctor, was Trooper Michael Proctor home at that time?
No, he was not home.
And had you ever been over to his house prior to that or any time subsequent?
No, never.
Now, you did have some conversations with Trooper Proctor following this day and around let me ask you this. You testified a bit about a rolling route. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you describe to the jury sort of what that was or what occurred on that?
So that day in July, a group got together under one blotter, and they all met and they
can't
decided to go
Boston.
to different houses. So Michael Proctor had been made aware of what was happening. So he had reached out to tell me, you know, what was going to be happening and how they had set up some cameras. It was a Saturday. I had just come home from vacation with my children and my husband. Mrs. O'Keefe picked up my two younger children and brought them out with her so they wouldn't be home for this. And my two older children and my husband were in the house while about, 50 to 75 people came to my house. They screamed, they yelled, "There's a murderer." They just caused an absolute ruckus outside.
A ruckus.
Prior to that, did you have any conversations with Proctor and other troopers from the state police about?
No, I really feel bad. I mean, my heart really hurts in the fact of, the O'Keefes are rolling with these people. Like, these are their people. They're rolling with them. And
John got off lucky.
I hope that they kind of come around and see the lies and the bullshit and the cover up here. I just find it interesting, though.
Was my joke too subversive?
I just find it interesting, though.
Okay.
It's trial. Paul, the brother of John's, been sitting on one side of the courtroom and his mom's sitting on the other. And I wonder if Paul has kind of come around a little bit. But I hope they see through this stuff. But I don't know.
Knowledge of that incident.
The jury sees through all this crap.
Yes.
And as far as setting up sort of whole cameras around your house to memorialize whatever.
She's always looking at the
Yes.
jury. Now, you were asked some questions with regard to the Google search. Again, that was initiated after 6 a.m. Why that?
Because Miss Reed asked me to Google how long to die from hypothermia. She said, Google hypothermia, Google how long it takes to die in the cold. She was shaking me, screaming at me to do it.
And she's shaking you as you're typing, is that correct?
Correct.
And there's some misspellings, correct?
Correct. I also have MS and I have issue.
Well, I'll allow that.
I have MS and I have, issues with my hand. So I a lot of times Google and make errors, but the cold also makes my hand go completely numb. So I'm not surprised that that's how it would come out.
When you were in your bedroom sometime after 2 a.m., fair to say the defendant wasn't there shaking you when you were Google searching for ozone basketball or Hawk
Objection. Sustained.
One moment, John.
Yes.
We're going to end here.
Nothing further on.
Okay, Mr. Jackson.
All right. Jackson.
Concerning statement, I hit him. He gave a
Is this
statement
recross?
on January 29th to Sergeant Wright. Called him over to specifically give him a statement, correct?
Correct.
Gave a statement the next day, later that day, Trooper Proctor, correct?
Correct.
You were also met with, on that following Tuesday, with a trooper named Prince, correct?
Correct.
And then you testified in April of 2022, no fewer than 12 times about statements that you attributed to Ms. Reed, correct?
Correct.
And in not one of those instances, not one.
Oh, Kurt, you might not know this because you're not local. I'm around this. I go to the courthouse and stuff all the time, but you might not know this. After the first day that Jennifer Cave testified, they were all over hanging out at her house. It was like 14 of them all over there. There was cars everywhere, up and down. But wait, they don't discuss the details of the case or their testimony.
The witnesses
had
in the
Albert
case were having a little party together
Yeah,
after the first day of the trial.
unbelievable. After the
how's
first
that
day
legal?
that Jennifer McCabe had testimony, only consider the state of mind, comma, common.
Wait,
I
after
mean,
the first day, she had testimony. She was still on the stand, right? Because
Yes,
they
and
came
were
back the
all
next
there.
day.
They were all there over in her
Oh,
house that night. There's photos of it everywhere.
dude, that is so dirty. Oh,
And they
that's
were
so
talking
dirty.
about, they were just all caught out at an engagement party all together. And Colin Albert testified that he doesn't have social media. Guess where he posted photos of that engagement party? On his social media. And then when it was caught, his
Yeah,
account gets deleted. How about this? A video today, Turtle Boy, Aiden Carney, gets a video of Colin Albert fighting. He said he had never been in a fight before.
dude, if that's so wrong because she's on the stand, that's witness tampering, that's obstruction. Like
Yeah,
I as an attorney, like if she were my client, and she's in the middle of testifying, like I can't have a conversation with her because she's on the stand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't even have a conversation with her. And I'm like her an attorney in this hypothetical, but she's at a party, like a whole bunch of people talking to her, like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah. Unreal.
That's messed up, dude. That's wrong.
All right, we'll finish with Alan Jackson, and I do have to wrap up the stream. Kurt, again, I want to just thank you for jumping on and hanging out here. Again, this is the first time that we've ever met. I've checked out your channel; it's fabulous, and I love your.
I've been enjoying making clips of the stupid. That's been interesting.
But we'll get through this, and then we're gonna wrap this one up. I appreciate you hanging out, though. Thank you.
No worries.
Is there a report that says you said, she said, I hit it? Correct?
Correct. Although I told Mike Lank.
Oh, we already know that the officers all got it wrong.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained as to that. Next question, please, Mr. Jackson.
I mean,
So you
fair
indicate
point.
that you were, the harassment that you just described, this terrible harassment that you just described, started in about April 2023, correct?
Correct.
It was around the time that there were public hearings concerning this Google search. Is that right?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Is that
He
right?
loves your
I'm
clips.
not sure exactly when the Google search came out.
But you do know that you started suffering this harassment that you claimed is awful and terrible, et cetera, around April of 2023. Is that right?
I didn't claim it's awful. It is awful.
Okay, I'm sure it is awful, Ms. McCabe. I'm sure it's terrible.
It is.
It sucks to be harassed.
It really does.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, so
That
that's
was argumentative.
sustained, and I'll strike it. Go ahead and ask a question, Mr. Jackson.
That's fair. That's a fair.
You were upset by April of 2023 that there was public outrage about your family being involved in the death of John O'Keefe. That's what you were upset about, correct?
I was upset that we as witnesses were being harassed.
You were upset about public outrage concerning this case, correct?
Objection.
Sustained, that was answered. Next
Fair
question.
enough.
And 2 months
No.
later, in June of 2023, for the first time, you testified at another proceeding, and lo and behold, you attributed the words, I hit him, to my client, right?
Objection.
So ask that without the objectionable phrase.
2 months later, at another proceeding, in June of 2023, you attributed the statement, I hit him, to my client for the first time under oath, correct?
Under oath, correct.
You indicated when you turned your phone in, the police were perfectly okay with you deleting communications with your children, correct?
Correct.
Including Allie, who's a material witness in this trial.
Objection.
So part of that is objectionable, and I'll sustain that. So
You're aware that your daughter Allie was a witness in this case.
At the time, I was not aware of that. No.
No, but you did know that ultimately she was going to indicate that she drove Colin home, correct? You knew that at the time.
Objection.
that's sustained.
Did you know at the time Allie had driven Colin home, or she said she drove him home?
I had no idea she drove him home.
But you deleted all those communications with Allie, didn't you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you delete all the communications that you had off your phone with Allie, your daughter?
Objection.
So this has already been answered, but go ahead, finish. Let's finish this loop. Did you delete them?
I deleted the conversations with my 4 daughters. At that time, Allie was not a witness.
All I asked you, you heard my question. Did you or did you not delete the communications with Allie?
Objection.
That's been answered.
Judges are going to close off this questioning anytime.
You
now,
said
I
that
think.
there was this statement that horrified you, your words, horrified you, that Carrie Roberts made during her interview that you were eavesdropping on, right?
I'm not sure if she made it during that interview. I'd have to look back to see when I said she told them everything in bold, because I know she had said it to me multiple times. So I'm not sure if it's when she said it in the interview or just in general, when she said, I told them everything. I told them, etc.
So when you said in that group chat, she's telling them everything, that might not even be what you're talking about.
No, it was.
And you said that horrified you, correct?
I didn't know Carrie Roberts. So yes, her statement horrified me.
Horrified you.
Yes, that was horrifying.
And in that group chat, your response to that horrifying statement was 3 words. I love it.
Was there a response prior to that?
You tell me, ma'am. I'm not
Probably
the one
love it.
under oath. You are.
Well, if you want to show me it again, I'd love to get.
Yesterday.
So do you have it handy, Mr. Jackson?
I don't know.
She's crazy. I mean,
She is-
it's a whole bag of crazy here.
Stay away, man. Stay away.
She's a whole bag of crazy. See the eyes?
Okay. Your Honor, it's been marked and entered. It was
They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, and
Yeah, right.
Sure.
yeah, I'm having problems here, man. Her eyes make me feel dark inside.
Oh, geez. Speed up the time.
Yes.
Look at those 2 pages. If you would.
Could you tell me what pages, please?
69 and the second page, Ms. McCabe, if you wouldn't mind.
What's the second number, Ms. McCabe?
Number, bottom right.
2170.
Thank you.
You have that in mind?
Yes, I do.
May I? Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. During that conversation, when you said she's telling them everything, that came right on the heels of your husband saying, this girl could write a book, this woman could write a book or something like that, correct?
Correct. She talks nonstop.
Right. And then you said 2 texts down.
This is like a
telling
bad
them
episode of
everything.
Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Correct.
The text just before that was, I love it.
That was in response to my husband saying this girl could write a book.
What's the next thing that you wrote to that group within a second of that?
She is telling them everything.
Right. May I put the question?
Sure.
Nowhere in that text chain did you say something along the lines of, oh my goodness, I'm so horrified. Did you?
Those were on phone conversations.
Nowhere in those
Convenient.
texts that you just saw did you say the words or write the words, I'm so horrified. Did you?
No, because it was already spoken about.
You were asked
Let it go.
on that morning, January 29th, 2022, as you drove to the location and ultimately to 34 Fairview? What ultimately happened? And your testimony was, as you approached, my client was searching frantically for John O'Keefe, correct?
I don't believe I said she was searching frantically for John O'Keefe.
Searching frantically.
She was screaming frantically in the back seat and texting in the back seat.
Was she just sitting there, curled up in the back seat, sucking her thumb, or was she searching out the window?
She was screaming
Right.
between Kerry and I. So I'm not really sure how she saw John over here when her head is up here screaming and then looking down and texting.
Was the whole point of that trip, Ms. McCabe, to search for John?
It was because she knew where he was.
The whole point of that trip was to look for him, correct?
She directed us to go to 34
No.
Fairview.
The whole point of the trip was to look for John,
At
correct?
34 Fairview, where Karen said to go.
And your testimony is that if it hadn't been for Karen jumping out of that truck, you wouldn't have stopped, correct?
Because I wouldn't have seen him. I didn't know he was there. She did.
Yes or no? Was that your statement? If she hadn't gotten out of the car, you wouldn't have stopped.
I don't believe it was stated like that. I believe there was a question and I answered.
And the question was, would you have stopped? And your answer was what?
What was the direct question?
Oh my goodness, Ms. McCabe. It was 5 minutes ago.
Right. Did he ask, did you see something? You like to change words. I just want to be certain.
So, Mr. Jackson, just keep it to questions, not comments.
You were asked just a second ago by Mr. Lally, if Karen Reed hadn't jumped out of the car, you wouldn't have stopped, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. All
Okay. All right, Ms. McCabe, we are finished.
Every direct was kind of a
Jury,
loss.
you're-
That was just kind of a loss. It wasn't worth it.
No.
Nah, it wasn't worth it. kind of weak in my view.
Yeah, right. Come
They can't
on.
all be great.
I'm sensing your sarcasm. She's a whole bag of crazy, though. She is a whole bag of crazy.
That she is. That much cannot be denied.
Unreal. Unreal. I can't wait till Proctor. That's going to be interesting, too. It's going to be really, or Brian Higgins.
You think Proctor will take the stand?
I don't know. Does the Commonwealth bring him out? I mean, knowing?
With the Fed investigation in place, I'd be surprised if he doesn't plead the fifth. I would.
Jeez, man.
You kidding me? If I knew the feds
seems
were
crazy.
investigating me relating to this, I'd plead the fifth. That is not my problem, man. Protect your rights every time.
Wow. That's what didn't Furman do that? No O.J. Simpson trial at one point? Started pleading the fifth? I think he did on some certain questions.
I don't remember. That was a long time ago. You might have me on that one.
I think he did. I think when they started questioning him about the racist implications, that's where he started pleading the fifth, and they had him on that. Even though I know 100% O.J. Simpson did it, in my opinion. I don't think there's no doubt about that, but they got him good on that. I think it was. But interesting. This is going to be a very, very interesting case.
Don't we have like
and it
4 more
has
weeks
been.
of this?
It's more. There's no court
Lord.
tomorrow. There's no court tomorrow because Aiden Turtleboy Carney has court tomorrow in his witness
Yeah.
intimidation.
Yeah.
So they're
I haven't
they're
been
not
I haven't been following Turtle Boy super closely. I followed a little bit when he was indicted initially, and it seemed a little suspect on some of the charges. I've been following it super closely. When he was kicked out of the courtroom, I didn't have a major problem with it. I don't really think that he has any valid arguments there. I don't think a First Amendment argument works for him being kicked out of the courtroom. But yeah, I don't really know a whole ton about it, but it seemed like he was getting done dirty because it
Big
seemed
time.
like he was just doing what investigators would do.
big time. 100%. 100%. They've been doing him
Yeah.
dirty. But anyway, he's got court tomorrow, so they can't have Karen in the same courtroom. And then there's supposed to be a full day of court on Friday, I believe, and then you break for Memorial Day. Yada 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 yada.
What's the court for tomorrow? Is it a hearing for the
It's
access?
a hearing in the witness intimidation for Turtle Boy.
Okay.
So all these people, it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna probably be out there at the courthouse streaming outside tomorrow. So
That'd be fun.
yeah, I try to get down there as much as I can, or I'll do like a mix where I'll go down, watch Karen come in, walk into court, and I'll kind of run out, get to my studio, and then stream the trial for the rest of the day. So I try to do a mix. But
What microphone you got there?
this is a $100 special off Amazon. And this is actually, I don't know if you saw the beginning of the show. This is where I started in my, like, literally my bed is right there in my bedroom. And
Yeah.
I just built out a brand new studio, but
Nice.
my air conditioning unit in my studio is being replaced, and it's not going to be up and running for like 2.5 weeks. I went to my studio tonight. It was like 90 degrees in the room. I'm like, nope, coming home and doing it from the bedroom because of my AC. So
Yeah, the microphone sounds good.
yeah, I'll send you the deets on it if you want to grab one.
No, I finally got my Shure SM7B about 6 months ago, and I'm very, very happy. I'll keep it for life. Thank you.
Yeah, I have that in my studio. Yep. I have that. So yeah, but this is not a bad little $100 Amazon mic.
There you go.
Anyway, Kurt, thank you so much. I appreciate you jumping on. And if you ever want to come over and hang out again, let me know.
All right, cool. I'll stick around and hope to see you around. I'll check out with you later.
Awesome. All right. Have a
All right,
good night.
bye-bye.
All right.